What up, guys? Welcome to the Chewjitsu podcast. Today's episode, we're going to talk about why I am a fruitcake who likes playing grab ass. We'll we'll explain in a minute. It's fun.
Does anybody like fruitcake, by the way? That's a controversial topic. Some people don't
Bro,
like
I've had a good
fruitcake.
fruitcake.
Yeah.
Most of the fruitcake you
I
have,
bet you
obviously.
have, sir. I bet you have.
Yeah. Most of the fruitcake that I think I've ever tried is like disgusting. It's like a brick.
Yeah.
But I don't know where I was, but I had some fruitcake and it was like soft and it was moist, and like the little candy stuff inside wasn't like hard or anything. It was really good. I don't know where the hell I had that fruitcake. It may have been in Frankenmuth.
Really?
I think so. I think it was in Frankenmuth. I think I had some like sort of fruitcake at some place. I was like, this is delicious. So anyway, I can say that most of it I've ever had is disgusting, but there's one fruitcake I've had somewhere and it was good. So it can happen. But we'll talk about that, and we'll talk more about the relationship that you have with jiu-jitsu. So today's sort of episode will sort of take some twists and turns, and but we'll be kind of getting into the idea of the relationship with jiu-jitsu and training, and cracking open and deriving some deeper meanings out of it, and whether or not you even need to, or whether or not it's going to happen anyway. And I'll explain where this all came from. It came from kind of like a trolley comment that I got on the internet, and we'll have some fun with that today. So big thanks for you guys for being here. Big thanks to our sponsors for helping make the podcast happen. Charles Web. Check them out at charlesweb.com. They're one of the premier CBD companies that are out there. They are one of the OGs in the CBD space. They've been around for a long time, and they make a really what is the word that you would use for that? A really well-crafted product that's third-party tested, that is put through more scrutiny than it needs to be in a market that is not regulated by the FDA. So, a lot of supplements that are CBD supplements can be all over the place. I was talking to one of my staff members at the gym the other day, and they were taking some gummies, like some Delta 9 gummies and some other CB cannabinoid products. And they were talking about how all over the place they are. Like, this one knocks me out. This one makes me feel really high. This one I get nothing from. And, with CBD products, it can be the same thing. They did a study on like some of them several years ago where they found that several of the CBD products out there on the market were mislabeled. They didn't have as much CBD as they said they did, or they had less, or they had other compounds such as too much THC. So, you're getting like basically super high from it. So you're getting a lot of things that you don't actually want, or not getting enough of what you actually want. And so Charlotte's Web is third-party tested. So when you look at their website, whatever products they have, they're like, that's been tested to ensure whatever's in the label or on the label, what they say is in there is what is in there. And they have a wide array of products, everything from traditional CBD products to CBN products that are mostly geared towards helping you stay asleep, to THC free versions, which you can look into, and even things like functional mushrooms like lion's mane and things of that nature. I like the lion's mane product, if you guys ever try it, which I use like if I'm getting ready to do a bout of work. I'll typically have the lion's mane stuff, and I basically take it each day because it seems to help keep me focused when I'm doing jiu-jitsu or when I'm training, doing work after training, like on the computer and things like that. But if you guys want to check out any of their stuff, go to their website at charlesweb.com. You can use the promo code Chewjitsu30 for 30% off the order on whatever you buy. Also, guys, if you want to check out another one of our sponsors, Epic Roll, if you guys are in the market for getting some new gear, check them out at epicrollbjj.com. And also, guys, just sort of a word to you, at the time of recording this, I believe my Chewjitsu rash guards will still be on sale. They will be on sale until April 11th, 2025. So if you guys want to snag one of my new rash guards and shorts, they're really cool design. I really like them. I think you guys will. You can just check them out and see what you think. I've got everything from white to blue to black to all the colors, and then I also have a special IBJJF black belt legal one, because funny story, I went to the IBJJF Nogi Worlds, was getting ready to compete. I have a black rash guard with a little bit of gray on it, and they tell me that it's illegal because of the gray. Again, proving to me that why I do like the IBJJF. They're like the homeowners association of jiu-jitsu. Just so many nitpicky little rules. And so luckily I I have a rule when I go to a competition, I always bring a second uniform with me, no matter what. Always bring a second uniform with me. I had my second uniform in the bullpen. I ran to the bullpen, changed there, came right back, competed, won the match, no big deal. And so before I released it, I was like, I need a black belt legal one in case any other black belts are out there that want one of these. And so some really cool designs. I'm pretty proud of them, excited about them. Hope you guys want to check them out. Just go to my website at jujitsu.net to find them. And again, if you are watching this at another time, and you're looking for some good jiu-jitsu gear, check out epicrollbjj.com. You can use the promo code Chewjitsu20 for 20% off the order on whatever you buy on some really good quality stuff. Also, guys, if you want to support the podcast directly, you can do so by going to the Patreon, patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. When you join up for a very inexpensive price, you'll get access to a ton of extra content, everything from behind the scenes stuff that's not released anywhere else, recordings of seminars I've done, warm-up routines specifically designed for jiu-jitsu people, meaning if you need some stretching, need something to warm up specifically with jiu-jitsu, it could help you out, or you could use it as a cool down with longer stretches, and a bunch of other content and perks. If you guys want to get more details for it, just go to the website at patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast to get details. Also, if you guys would like to get my daily email, a portion of this podcast today is sort of based on one of those emails. Many of you guys who are listening to this probably already know this, but if you're not one of my daily email subscribers, you can get my daily email by going to my website at jujitsu.net/join. When you join up on the daily email, I will send you a free ebook and video. So you'll get a PDF and a video that go into how to create a little bit more focus for your training during open mats. So many people don't have the ability to directly control their training in order to place restrictions and to do situational training. And so in a lot of cases, you have to sort of do that stuff manually on your own if you're in one of those situations. And so if your rolling basically consists of open rolling, then in the ebook, I will show you how to tweak the rolling and how to tweak the way that you roll in those situations to get more focus from your training, which means more skill development. So if you guys want to get the ebook, it'll give you 12 different strategies. It's a super quick read, and you can take one of those strategies and use it in your next rolling session. My website is jujitsu.net/join. Also, guys, this is for any of you old broke jiu-jitsu practitioners or young broke jiu-jitsu practitioners. My buddy Eugene, my co-host Eugene, the person with me right here, the guy that I've been using since 2010 when he became one of my students, and he was in like physical therapy school. He's been my PT for a long time, and he has started doing coaching with people. So, the reality is that for most people, when it comes to things like rehab and, getting yourself back up to speed from a injury, courses they're okay, but it's tough, right? It's tough to do because a lot of times it's not necessarily something that's fun. And so also too, there's a lot of different restrictions and a lot of different issues that can come up. Also too, if you have a body where you have some different restrictions on your body that aren't the norm, or you have some unique situations going on, then it's best to have someone actually put some eyes on you and say, like, oh, you're tight here, whatever. For instance, with me, I have some unique situations that Eugene has helped address with me in my body where, oh, you're tight here in this muscle and this muscle's tight. So here are some stretches and some exercises you should be doing on a regular basis as maintenance. And so if you guys want something like that, you would like a professional who is a black belt in jiu-jitsu, who's also a doctor of physical therapy, who basically can look at your body and figure out why the damn thing's not working as well, why it's not moving as well, and giving you a tailored approach and accountability to fixing that, then Eugene, where can they find your coaching stuff at?
So they can reach out on Instagram, Jiu-Jitsu Therapist, or jiujitsutherapist@gmail.com. They can check out my website and just reach out any way you want, or
Okay.
even through the podcast email if you want to do that too.
Okay, so shoot us a message, guys. I know everybody's trying to sell you guys stuff. I know how the internet world is. It's like it's a bunch of scammy, salesy people. And I know we have sponsors. I use all the products that we have sponsors with, by the way. So it's like I have no problems sharing them with you. But with the coaching stuff, for instance, with Eugene and with Eli as an example, my coach Eli Coffee, I get no money when you guys, just letting you know, I get no kickback if you join or not. I just let people know because there's people that have come into my life who have like helped me fix problems that I had where like other people just for whatever reason, it's like perplexed people, right? Like Eli, it's like instantly changed my weight cutting game and helped me get bigger and more muscular and more jacked. And it's like, it's been the easiest process ever. It's like, it's just very thoughtful and step by step. And I'm accountable to someone. And with Eugene, anytime I've had a problem, it's like, oh, hey, we can fix you. And I've worked with physical therapists before that are like, they're looking at me like doing jiu-jitsu. Like, why are you doing this? I'm like, look, I don't want I don't want that question. I want you to help me get back to my thing.
Sure.
And so Eugene's helped me from my MMA fights to my jiu-jitsu competitions, everything else. And so for you guys, if you need assistance, if you're tight and rigid, you got an old broke body, or you're dealing with some injuries, check them out. It'll be money well spent as far as getting yourself back up to speed. So anyway, that's my spiel for it.
Appreciate that.
And yeah, I know, man. I know you're kind of like, oh shucks, big guy.
No, that's cool. That's cool. I appreciate that,
But
man. It means a lot.
I just try to let people know, like, it's legit. It's not like someone's gonna like screw you over. Like, and even the price that he's paying, it ain't that bad. It's like, especially considering how much you would actually have to pay to like go to a sports specific physical therapist to work with them one-on-one, right? So it's a good price. So anyway, that said, let's get into the podcast. Let's talk about why I'm a fruitcake that likes playing grab ass. So guys, before we get into today's podcast, I wanted to share a message that I got. I'm going to keep them anonymous for some different reasons, but we will we'll call her Jane. And Jane says that she's over in Europe currently, and she said for a number of different reasons, right? Where she's training at, she doesn't speak the language. She's in a place where she doesn't speak the language, and there's some other different challenges that she's having at the gym. But she said, I'm going to bring it up here. She listened to our podcast recently with AJ Klingerman, and then she said she listens to a couple other podcasts, and she said that, being isolated in the jiu-jitsu community area that she's in, she's used, the videos in our podcast to supplement her instruction over the last years and keep her on the mats. It's one of those things where, I imagine that if you feel like you're kind of not able to connect with the community, it feels good to be able to connect with the community in some way. And so she said the podcast here was a part of that. So Jane, thank you for your message, right? And we'll keep you anonymous here. I fuzzied the details too, because I'm not going to try to call out the gym and some of the other things that she dislikes, but nonetheless, she found community here and was able to use the stuff that we talk about on the podcast and some of my videos to help her keep going on the mat. So it's awesome. So Jane, appreciate the message. And for you guys that listen to the podcast, when you guys do send a message, I appreciate it. And I usually send them over to Eugene, or I'll read them out here on the podcast. So just a heads up in case you guys like the podcast. So today's podcast, I wanted to have some fun with you guys. So, when you put your mug on the internet and you put stuff up, it always happens that, you're going to get some trolly people. It's not a big deal. It's just part of it. For me, I have fun with it. Because when people, like for instance, if Eugene was to come to me with some sort of criticism or something like that, his message would mean something to me. I would take it to heart. If one of you guys were one of my students, or if you're one of my online members and you came to me, I would be like, okay, your opinion matters. But random internet troll people with alternate or lurker accounts mean nothing to me, right? Like, so you say like alternate accounts, like there's the account that's obviously they have no followers. They're just, it's just an account because you want to go and shit post. And so the comment was for one of my posts recently where it was just like a little Chewyism that had popped up in one of my emails. And it's such as what happens. Sometimes you write things, and when you're in the flow of writing, little ideas pop out, and you're like, "Oh, that's a good idea." And some of those make posts on Instagram. And so the post that I made was, quote, "Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu helps you find yourself and lose yourself at the same time," end quote. So the idea is pretty simple, right? It's like, when you go into the gym, we all know that when you put yourself into challenging situations, Jiu-Jitsu, like many other challenging situations, I found parenting does this as well. It basically brings a mirror up, and it's like, here's your shit. You want to look at it, right? And you're shaking, you're turning your head because you're like, especially with the parenting, right? Like, you know what I mean?
I had a moment today. And I'll share that after. But yeah, it's just like, I'm in my head a lot anyways, like I'm in my head about everything, every jiu-jitsu class, every interaction, not every interaction, but a lot of times getting the kids out the door in the mornings. That's not always as smooth sailing as you'd like it to be. So yeah,
so that's what I'm saying. So like, when you do anything challenging, it doesn't have to be jiu-jitsu. Anything challenging that requires you to dig a little deeper, that requires you to stretch and get uncomfortable, it literally at some point is going to put a mirror up in front of you and basically let you stare at all your crap. And all of our crap's different. We all have different baggage, right? But basically it lets you look at it and say, okay, what are you going to do with this? And different people have different baggage, right? Like as an example for me, one of my issues when I was younger in jiu-jitsu was that I would tap out a lot of times to pressure. I would literally hyperventilate. I would freak out. I had anxiety, which I think stemmed from some issues with physical and sexual trauma back in the day. And I think that basically this whole response is happening in my body. I didn't know what's going on, but nonetheless, I was faced with the situation where I'm giving up, I'm tapping out, and I'm looking around me and nobody else is. Everybody else is stuck in the same positions and I'm the only one giving up. I'm not going to keep doing that. Right. And so again, anything that you do creates those situations. And on the flip side, how many of us use jiu-jitsu in part as a way to just turn our brain off for a little bit, right? Like you go in and no matter what's happening outside of the gym doors, you come in and you can be immersed in this experience and people, and it just sort of takes you away from it for a while. I remember, during some of the more difficult situations in my life, like, as one example, when my mother was sick with cancer and she was kind of, there on her way out and we all kind of knew it was happening. I would come into the gym and, I'd be driving. I was there with my mother the whole day and, being strong for her, driving to the gym, bawling and whatever, would dry myself up, would sit in the car for a few minutes to try to like not go into the gym where it was obvious, and then I would waltz into the gym, and then it was just like brain off, training time, dump stress, out of head, go back, be strong for the people that I need to be strong for. And in a lot of cases for us as wives, husbands, fathers, mothers, friends, whatever, whenever we are carrying a load, sometimes it's easier for us to carry that load for the people that we're around after we've trained. It helps out in different reasons. And so in those ways, that's how I interpret those. You may interpret those words differently because of your different situation. But that's kind of how I was looking at it. And so I posted it. And a lot of people, a lot of comments were from people who were like, yeah, totally. I connect with that, right? Well, of course, here comes the fun one. The comment came from, again, some lurker account. It says, quote, if playing grab ass with sweaty dudes is your entire personality, you're probably a fruitcake. It's not that deep, dude. You're just choking. You're just doing chokes, end quote. So, fruitcake playing grab ass, guilty as charged, sir. But, it made me think about this. And for you guys that are on my email, that get my daily email, we talked about this already, right? I think things are as deep as you want to make them. Right? Because you can look at human existence and from a surface level, it's basically like, you have these tubes that are connected to this nervous system that has these like eyeballs. Like if you ever look at like our nervous system and our brain connected, it's like this weird alien creature that then is wrapped around in a meat suit and has this energy system of tubes that where basically food and water come in and then crap comes out the back end. And then they just run around trying to, basically feed themselves and procreate to keep the species alive. So you could look at it from that base level and say, this is all humans are, right? We're just this, that, whatever. But we understand that when you're having like a really good meal with your friends or your family members or a loved one, that meal takes on a different meaning than simply keeping yourself alive, right? If you're with your partner and you guys are together, in the bedroom times or whatever else you're doing, right? You would say that you're probably, especially if it's a partner you've been with for a long time, that takes on a level of significance that's not simply just, I'm trying to keep the species alive and this is how I'm biologically wired. Sure, that's a part of it, but there's a deeper meaning to it. And for a lot of people, when you come into jiu-jitsu, there initially starts off as a surface level reason as to why you start. I want to learn how to fight. I want to get in shape. I want to learn how to choke people. I think it looks neat, whatever, right? There's a surface level reason. And then at some point, for most people, there becomes a deeper meaning, a deeper reason that continues to pull them in, right? It's no longer simply the surface level reason of fighting, because there's at a certain point where many people who've trained are beyond that. They're competent. They would be perfectly fine in a fight. They don't need to train anymore if that's all they were doing it for. So why do they keep coming in? Why do they keep coming in over and over and over again? It's a deeper meaning to it. And, a lot of people sent me messages about this. They were like, because in the email, I was like, hey, what are your reasons? Everybody's sending me their reasons. And, the reasons range for a number of different things, depending on what those people have experienced. One of my friends, Melissa, right? Like she's like a yogi, she's big into that. And in the, by the way, for you guys that are listening, for the email, I shared an idea from Joseph Campbell. It's one of my favorite quotes from Joseph Campbell. He says that life has no meaning. Each of us has meaning, and we bring it to life. It is a waste to be asking the question when you are the answer. So basically, the meaning is what you make of it based upon who you are, right? That's the meaning of things. And she brought up this idea because yogis are all about being present and all this stuff. But she says, like, everything in life can have depth if you give it the attention. The key is, what are you giving attention to? Jiu-jitsu, or are you judging others because of how good they're doing, right? So again, I think it's interesting to see how people perceive this, but I think we all do stuff for, we do jiu-jitsu, and it eventually takes on a deeper meaning than simply just the surface level stuff. And like I said, I think for a lot of us, if you're willing to look at it, jiu-jitsu shows you that mirror and basically brings up your bullshit periodically and lets you look at it, and essentially gives you the opportunity to do something with it.
Yeah, I think how you share your criticism is like that's the thing. Like, when you have this type of burner account or whatever you want to call it, like the way they share it, because they don't want, those individuals do not want interaction. They just want like to kind of almost like share their side and go, or whatever, like what's their meaning, right? Like what's their meaning for doing that? That's what I kind of wonder.
Like,
what kind of things are they dealing with?
I think they're like toddlers, right? Like, how like toddlers will do things sometimes and they're literally testing about how they can get attention.
Yeah.
Right. So when obviously a person like who's posting that kind of stuff, they're not going to listen to this podcast. So this is just us having fun, right? You guys listening, right. This is us laughing at people doing stupid stuff, and we're having fun with it. I'm not going to give him a reply on the comment, because that would be giving him attention that he would like, right? Or she would like. But I think it's the Tyler thing. I think people are just like, if you're a person that's like handling your business, you're doing stuff in your life, you're chasing important goals, you're dedicated to your family, you're doing all these different things. You know what you don't do? You don't sit on the internet and like comment about stuff that like you don't care about. If you don't care about, you know what you do? You just move on, right? But if you sit there and like are stuck on the internet like commenting, like and that's another thing too. Who knows? This could just be a completely like, this could be like a bot account. I don't think that it would be, but who knows? Maybe it's a bot account, because there's that idea, the dead internet theory, where like basically this idea that like a huge portion of the internet is just not even real. It's just like bots and like automated stuff, because like, for instance, like when you listen to Zuckerberg talk about how they would like find these Russian accounts, they're talking about they're making like 10,000 different, doing 10,000 different things in like a couple minutes. And so you have these bot farms and things like that where they're commenting usually on more like popular political sort of stuff, where they'll basically comment on there and and create this controversy type stuff. But there's so much of that sometimes I wonder, I'm like, are these real people, or is it just bots? Because a lot of it's just fake out there anyway. But I would imagine my account doesn't have that massive of a following, nor is it ultra political. So I'm sure it's just some random goofball on the internet. And again, someone like that, they're not handling their business. They're out there. They're not doing significant things. Otherwise, they wouldn't be on my profile and making weird comments. And if they were, right, like that, what does it tell you?
I think people
that are doing their stuff aren't doing that.
I think it's cowardly, because people do that on purpose, because there's not really a repercussion for it. Like, it's just like, you see so much, people getting mad driving, right? They get angry driving, because most chances are, if you get road rage, you're not going to be interacting with that person. You'll see them for that second. You might, whatever, give them the finger, or they might give you the finger, or whatever, and yell at you, and then they'll drive off, right? So it's just people that are, you said they're like toddlers, like children, that they either are testing the waters, or they're significantly probably unhappy or insecure with their.
It's a projection of what's in them.
Yeah. And it's just interesting because like just when I see those kind of things, just not like negativity like that, just it makes me I wonder. I'm like, oh, what's going on in their head? Like what goes on inside of somebody's head to like think, oh, I'm gonna make this. I mean, it's kind of it takes some effort. You gotta make an account, you gotta find somebody maybe you quote unquote like or dislike or whatever. If you're trolling them, then you gotta actually write stuff in there, and I'm sure they're gonna read or know because if it was me doing it, I'd want to see the response. I'd
Yeah.
want to see the reaction. But that's just me. I don't do that kind of stuff. But if it was me, I'd like, what does that do? Because you want to see if there's any kind of if you make any kind of waves or any kind of dent in anything.
Yeah. So there's a book here called if you guys are watching the video, you see it, but it's called The Birth and Death of Meaning by Ernest Becker. And in the book, he makes this idea or says this idea that essentially, there's different ways to build confidence, right? There are long lasting, sort of substantial ways, and there's cheap ways. A substantial way to build your confidence would be to do something like develop a really good skill, right? To develop a skill in something, right? Because if you have a skill, you're like, I can do something, right? That feels you feel very good about that, right? Like,
Yeah.
for instance, you being a black belt and being a doctor of physical therapy, and, you deep down know that you are good at something, and that's unshakable. That can't be taken away from you because you've competed as a black belt. You have treated lots of people for different ailments and helped them. So deep down that you have true like confidence, right? Not delusion, not fake it before you make it. Freaking real confidence in what you can do because it's been tested.
Mhm.
The other sort of cheaper ways are you can make fun of people, right? And so in this thing is like the idea that if you tear others down, so basically you pull them down below you, right? So instead of building yourself up, you try to tear people down below you, and it's a way to try to make yourself feel better. So I'm not saying that that's the person's case. I'm not trying to do like analyze this person, but you see a lot of people do that where they're unhappy, and instead of building themselves up, they just tear things down, right? And
Mhm.
but the bad thing is that it's cheap, doesn't last very long, because nonetheless your situation is still like net negative. If your confidence level is like negative, when you build that, that person comes down below you, sure, like you feel good that they're down below you now, and maybe that makes you feel good for a minute, but then as soon as that little bit wears off, you're still net negative. Opposed to if you put yourself in the positive a little bit, you'd be better off that way, right? So,
Mhm.
um, just an
Well,
idea. So,
yeah, anything that like requires effort, that requires time and devotion and dedication and things like that. Anything like that is going to have meaning to you just because like it requires it takes energy and it takes challenges that to get there. There's always like for example in anything in jiu-jitsu or in school for being a physical therapist. I mean, there's a lot of challenges, whether it's dealing with challenging or difficult people like clients or patients or exams or not getting along with it's just there's always and you have to ask yourself the question of is it worth it, right? And if it's worth it, that means it's meaningful to you. And if it's not worth it, then it's not a value, it's not a meaningful thing. And I
yeah,
think that if anybody is like always the question, a lot of times from white belts like how to get to blue or how to get to black belt or the it's like, if it's meaningful to you, you'll get there. Like, I think if you care about it, you'll get there. And
yeah,
and that's the question I sometimes have for people that fall off of jujitsu, right? Like, did it just not hold the meaning or have the impact that it did on some of us? And that's something I always ask myself because if you enjoy it, it shouldn't. I mean, it's going to be difficult, but it shouldn't be that hard to just show up and
right.
be there.
Yeah, if you enjoy doing it, it's not that hard. I mean, that's like I've said this before. I don't think that because I've seen so many black belts go on these like long, like, you have to have discipline and da 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 da. I'm like, yeah, maybe, but maybe just like you enjoyed doing it, and so it really wasn't that difficult. It was difficult in the sense that it required a lot of effort, but like I've never really had to drag myself to the gym. Sure, like sometimes I'm tired, but I go to the gym and I know I'm going to feel better afterwards. So it's like there's a reward waiting for me. It's like being really hungry and going to a restaurant. sure, I'm really hungry and I kind of just want to eat some food now, but I know that I'm going to be fed when I go to the restaurant. When I go to jiu-jitsu, I know afterwards I'm tired, but I know as soon as I get there, I'll get warmed up, move around. I'll start, chit-chatting with some guys.
Yeah.
And before I know it, my blood's going. We'll get some rolls in. I'll feel pretty good. And even if I have like a rough day where I'm the nail, I'll still feel better for being there. And so, again, I don't think it's that difficult for me, but for other people, maybe. And also too, I think sometimes people don't even know whether or not it's worth it, because it's like, let's say that you have a person that has never tasted, they've only eaten hot dogs their entire life. They've never had a steak. Now, obviously, we can say that a delicious steak friggin' beats the hell out of a hot dog any day of the week. If you really like hot dogs, then hey, cool. Like, you like hot dogs. But for I think 99% of us listening or talking right now, we would prefer a good filet mignon, or, if you're a vegan, maybe some sort of vegan dish or vegetarian dish. So they don't know what they're missing. They've never had the experience of it, right? And so I think sometimes people that get into this stuff, some of them drop off too quickly, where they never get past that initial sticky point, you know what I mean? Where they never actually get a chance to feel what it's like to really play the game and do so competently. And so if you never get to that point, you don't know. It's like competitions. A lot of people compete once, they lose their match, they don't feel good about it, and they're like, this isn't for me. You're like, yeah, but you never had your hand raised. It's like, it's a different experience once you get your hand raised. Once you get your hand raised, you're like, ooh, that was fun. Might want to do that again. Right. And so until you have the contrast of that, you really don't know what you're missing. So a lot of people will have like the sour experience of something, but then they don't stick around long enough to get the sweet experience. And so they don't have that contrast and they don't know what they're actually missing sometimes. Earlier, you said that you had something go on with when I was talking about
With
the
my
mirror.
son.
Yeah. What happened?
So like it's, we did jiu-jitsu last night. It always ends up being a little later night. So he gets to bed later.
Yeah.
And I'm on Wednesdays, I get him out the door, I take him to school. And it's just like getting him, to get dressed and
Oh, he's
like
dragging.
just to focus, He's one of those kids, man. If he loves something, if he loves to read, like the kid could read for hours or play Nintendo Switch for hours. But
Yeah,
then
of course.
sometimes he just gets like in the weeds on something else. And so like I was just like kind of, I don't know. I was kind of on him a little bit about like, hey, you got to come have breakfast and this and that. And he was kind of doing something else. And I remember I was like, hey, what are you doing? And he kind of froze for a second. And I was like, dang, I don't want to be like that. Like, I don't want to be that kind of parent that points and like is on him. Like, I want to like guide him. And my wife was like, usually if you don't catch yourself, like if it's something like I'm trying to kind of guide him and help him. And if I don't catch myself, I'm still kind of on him about that stuff. But she's like, you instantly stopped. And like to me, that was like a very powerful moment because I caught myself kind of doing something, parenting in a way that I didn't necessarily want to parent. And there was some meaning in that to me because I was like, oh, I think I'm starting to figure this thing out. I don't want to be the parent with the finger pointing, out like you should be doing this and kind of on him. And I want to be able to guide him in a better way so that he's able to, live life a little bit better and a little bit more successfully, I guess. I don't know, be happy and I want to have a good relationship with my kid. I know I'm kind of getting in a tangent, but like just you realize you start to derive. I had a certain meaning from that interaction of how to be better. And something I've been working on, and I think you're always evolving and you'll realize when your son gets a little older and he's got his own he's doing his own thing a little bit more and becomes more independent. Like how do you get him to guide him into the, doing the things he needs to do to get out the door and value time and value being somewhere on time and things like that.
Well, sure. I mean, and then there's this person that we want to be, and then sometimes we don't line up accordingly, right? And that could be different for everybody. That could be, me when I was younger, I wanted to be a good jiu-jitsu practitioner, but I'm quitting, right? Quitting in the moment that, I got frustrated or anxious about being put in the bottom. You're wanting to be a certain type of father to your kids, and you want to parent in a certain way. And then you realize that you're not living up to your expectation of who you want to be, and you catch it in the moment. Some person could be wanting to lose weight, And then all of a sudden they find themselves in the drive-through line at McDonald's and they're like, what the hell am I doing? Like,
Yeah.
This isn't who I want to be. Right. So again, the challenges are different for all of us, right? But they're all there. And I obviously I don't have the experience you have as a father, but I even see it now because like Luca just started getting to this point where he can communicate and do it decently. And he started doing this thing where, and it's new because he literally just started like stringing together sentences the other, like it was like overnight, almost literally overnight. He
Yeah.
just starts.
Once
Like,
it clicks.
yeah, it's
Once
like
it
all of a sudden
clicks, you're
he
like,
just clicked and he starts talking and he's like stringed together. So I'm like, oh shit, he's talking now. It was like overnight. I'm like, oh, he's like saying words to us now, and whatever. Anyway, so he did this thing where like he'll go. I'm like, he'll be like, more blueberries. All right,
yeah.
more blueberries. Come here. And I'm like, you want some more blueberries? No. And I'll pull the blueberries away and he'll go, more blueberries. And I'm like, you want more? And we'll do this back and forth, yes and
Yeah.
no. And I'm
Oh,
like, dude, you're driving me nuts. Like, so, there was a day where I was like, Luca, I was like, do you want more blue? And I kind of put a little bass in my voice and you could see him just kind of like look at me like, ooh. I'm like, I was like, and I snapped a little bit and then
sure.
I caught it. I was like, man, I don't want to start snapping at him. I was like, so, basically it was like working with him and, took some different strategies to basically get him to understand what no and yes mean more.
Yeah.
So that like, hey, when you say no, I'm taking this away now
Yeah.
and you're not getting it back. So you
Yeah.
got to tell me yes or no. And we, whatever. So anyways, I get it, to some degree, like, when you're parenting, there's still those challenges where, again, you got to catch yourself. And I think, again, one of the things jiu-jitsu has helped me do is get used to it. Because if I go back to that period where I was anxious and nervous and would freak out in the bottom of mount, I remember having this feeling. I don't know about you because I know you've struggled with anxiety before too. For
Sure.
me, my anxiety a lot of times like seems to come up through my chest. It's like a feeling that emanates from from the inside out. It's like it's not from my head. It's like all of a sudden I get this feeling in my body, and
Yeah.
then it's like my head's still trying to keep control. And then if the feeling gets too high, it literally just takes over and I'm shot. Whereas if
Mhm.
I can breathe and relax, I can keep it under control a little bit to some degree. And so I've noticed that sometimes, like if I get angry, if I get anxious, whatever it is, frustrated, it's like the feeling starts to emanate from in my body where my body will get tense and rigid or whatever it is. And if I feel it, I'm better at like recognizing it
Yeah.
and then basically taking that step back and saying like, hey, is this who you want to be right now? Is this the itch that we want to scratch? And so kind of keeping that idea has been super helpful. And I got that in a great degree from jujitsu.
Yeah, just being aware. You're very aware of your feelings and just situations. I think you become more. I think in jiu-jitsu, if you get very, very skilled, you kind of can slow things down a little bit.
Jiu-jitsu, I mean, that's the things that happen like with skill over time is like it's like if you listen to a quarterback, like a NFL quarterback, when you listen to them talk about like they step back and they're scanning, they have to make a lot of decisions in a really short amount of time. But that like 2 or 3 seconds that they have the ball where they're getting ready to throw it or whatever, they make a lot of decisions and they're taking in a lot of information.
Mhm.
you know, and I heard a jockey one time talk about like all the decisions that they have to make in a race that's like less than 2 minutes. There's a lot of things that they have to make decisions on. And so when you're doing grappling, a lot of times one of the things that you notice as your skill gets better is you're able to make more conscious decisions in a really short amount of time. And it might be a 5 second or like 4 second scramble or something, but within that scramble there's tons of decisions being made and they're being made like almost like on an instant thing, but like in the moment that they're happening it almost feels like they're happening slowly. And I think it's something that happens with our skill and the awareness that we develop from years of grappling, both in the awareness both mentally and physically. And also too with grappling, kind of back to the awareness point, if you let your emotions run wild, you get upset, frustrated, whatever, I mean, you're going to lose. It's just
Mhm.
as simple as that, right? So you kind of
Yeah.
learn that too. Like, if you let your emotions run wild, you're going to end up you're going to be less technical. You're going to get out of that problem solving mindset that you need to be in, and you're going to make mistakes. And I think it's the same thing with everything that we do. When we get out of that optimal mindset, we put ourselves in a bad position anytime we let our emotions run wild.
Yeah, well, I think if you're able to be more aware, like in jiu-jitsu, we know we're aware of like, oh, my hand's in a spot it shouldn't be in, or I'm in a position, and having the ability to modify or adjust. I think that just, I mean, that's a great skill to have. And that, I think, like you said, jiu-jitsu kind of derives meaning or gives you some skill sets that you can kind of take to other places, like being a parent or being more patient individual or being more aware of certain surroundings or situations. But you have to get to that point. That it's not an overnight thing. So
Yeah.
Chewy, here's a question. Do
Hmm.
you feel like it's possible to still train or even have a love for jujitsu or grappling if you don't maybe have a deeper meaning to it?
So when you met your wife, why did you want to talk to her?
Because I thought she was beautiful,
That was it.
and
And in that moment, that was
and
all
I
that was
actually
necessary.
I actually well, I that was the initial thing that kept you the
That's
way
it. That's it.
someone
That's that right there. That's it.
this
S-
I
So
thought she was a nerd as well, which I liked. I thought she was
so
very, intelligent when I
but
spoke
I'm
to her
saying
too.
from a view you saw her,
Yes,
you thought she was pretty.
I did.
That's it. There was nothing else needed. You were like
Initially, yes,
you
yeah.
were infatuated with this person. You're like, "Ooh, you seem very pretty. I would like to get to know you a little bit more." You did not go into it with this thing where you're like, I'm going to have these profound experiences, these, ups and downs. We're going to develop this life together. And, you didn't go into it with any sort of deepness to it. It was just surface level. She's hot. I want to go talk to her.
Mhm.
And then you maybe talk to her for a second. She's, oh, she's interesting too. Oh, and then it starts to build from there. I think of jujitsu very much in that sort of term as like relationships. Like my wife, the first time I met her, I just thought she was pretty.
Mhm.
Like there's nothing else to it. I thought she was pretty and I wanted to talk to her. That was it. Right. And then like when the more we hung out, the more I liked her. And then like, we've had it's been a profound effect on my life in the positive. So it's like freaking love my wife. I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, I always think about this. Like, what if I could go back and know everything that I know now and put my brain inside of my like 20, 18-year-old whatever body, and
Mm.
so I instantly have all the knowledge that I've accumulated. Now I know everything. So like I could go into jujitsu, and the reason I do this is I play these thought games with myself. Like what would I do with my life? And I'm like, well, I'd still do jujitsu. I really enjoy it. I would still do that, and I would be like way ahead of everybody because I'd have all these advanced techniques that nobody would really know about. Um, I could go invest a little bit of money in the stock market, know everything that's going to blow up. And, there we go. I'm going to be like a multi millionaire, right? Be like the politicians and have a little trading going.
That's
And I
right.
was, and I was thinking, I was like, and it was like a real thought. I was like, I wonder, like, would I go back and pursue my wife? Would I go back and like if I had to do it all over again, would I pursue her? I was like, hell yeah, I'd pursue her. I'd probably try to do it sooner. You know what I mean? Like it's like, all right, so you're
Mm.
you're the one that I really like being with. Let's get this going a little earlier, right? Let's kind of like get rid of all these people I didn't really enjoy. Let's you and me get together. But that's to say that when I got into jiu-jitsu, it wasn't for anything deep and profound. It was like I wanted to fight. I really liked wrestling and I missed wrestling. And there was deepness to that I didn't quite understand, being a 18-year-old with like no life experience and essentially my prefrontal cortex wasn't formed, which essentially makes me functionally stupid. I was 18 years old. So I didn't realize that I missed this brotherly camaraderie from wrestling. And since I didn't have that, I was depressed, but that was what the reality was. And when I went to jiu-jitsu, I wasn't depressed. So therefore I like going to jiu-jitsu. I wanted to compete, and those were the reasons. And then over time, they started to change, and partly because of the things that happened. Because at some point, I'm like, all right, I got to MMA and I won like a little belt. I did jiu-jitsu and I won a bunch of medals. I became the best guy in the gym, that I was training at. I became good enough that I could essentially most gyms I can roll with black belts. Not really. I can roll with multiple black belts and not be in danger at all. Um, like at what point is it like what are you chasing at some point, right? Like there has to be more to this than simply just that surface level stuff if you stick with it long enough. And so I think in the beginning you need the surface level because that's what you got, right? And then as you keep going, if you're going to continue, it has to transform into something more, because otherwise it's like, for instance, going back to the relationship. If the only thing that that person offers you is that they're attractive, but that's it, that's all you got, it's like, that ain't gonna work, right? Like, relationship has to be built on more than simply she's pretty or he's handsome, right? And so I
Yeah.
think that that's kind of where I think with that stuff is that over time, you will naturally develop, if you keep with it, you'll naturally develop some meaning, because the meaning is what keeps you going, right? It's like when you read about Viktor Frankl, when he's in the concentration camp during Nazi Germany, right? He's in a situation where life essentially has almost no meaning and people are dropping. And he said, like, one of the things that sort of kept him alive, that kept him going, was deriving some meaning out of that thing. And so it's about perspective, right? Like, when you look at the challenges that you're faced on and off the mats, it's like, you can look at them from a surface level and bad things happen to you as they happen to all people, and you can let them fold you or whatever. And the challenges that you have on the mats, you can let them get you upset, but you can also look at them as like, well, this is a chance for me to do something with it, chance to grow, a chance to learn from it, whatever it is, right? And so that's kind of how I see it. It's like, if you stick with it long enough, you're going to be forced to develop some deeper meaning to it, other than, I really like choking people.
Right.
It's like, it's gonna have to, dude, like, you're giving up a hell of a lot to just like to go into a gym to choke people.
Yep. And I think that just like many relationships, they don't pan out, don't work out. So jujitsu can be that for some people. They may do it for an initial joy of whatever. Maybe it's choking people, learning how to submit people, and then eventually that kind of runs its course and you don't derive any deeper meaning out of it. Maybe you don't build connections with your coaches or your teammates or your gym. You don't have a desire or pull to go, because I think for a lot of us, there's just this innate desire to continue to show up. Like, we miss it. We want to keep going. Like, it's just like, oh man, it's like you get the itch. You don't know how jiu-jitsu for a couple days or whatever. For me, it's like, I go about 2-3 days a week, and I have a couple days between training sessions, and I'm like, all right, I'm starting to get the itch. Like, I need to, usually after I train, have a hard train, I want to go the next day, but I know like my schedule doesn't allow it. But it's kind of like one of those things where, oh man, I want to do that again. That was great. And you just have that desire. And some people maybe do not develop that, and they end up not sticking with jujitsu. And we've talked about that as jujitsu for everyone. And I think most people can do jujitsu, because there's so much variability, but it's possibly not for everybody. Not everybody will do it, because it's just not their thing. It's not their thing.
Okay. It's not for everybody. It could be for everybody if they want to do it, but it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
And also too, here's the thing, and I sometimes see people do this, and it's kind of a mistake. You don't want to go into jiu-jitsu being a stage 5 clinger, right? Like imagine, for instance, I'll give you an example. I went on a date with a woman. It was like first date, everything seemed fine. We go on another date. Like, we've been talking for maybe 2 weeks. It's our, like, kind of our second date, and all of a sudden I'm meeting her parents, and like, I didn't know this. She was like, "Hey, do you want to meet at this place? They're having this little festival or something." I'm like, "Yeah, festival sounds great. Sure, I'll come." And so, like, I meet her parents, and like, she's like arm over arm with me kind of thing. And then all of a sudden, like, they're talking about like, the conversation went from like, we literally just had the first time that we really hung out like a week ago, to this is like talking about as if it's some like long lasting relationship and where this is going later. I'm like, whoa, this is way too fast. Like, I don't quite know you yet, ma'am. This is why
Ma'am.
this is why we start courting each other and we start to getting to know each other. And I remember talking to Jess when we were first dating, when we first started dating, actually before we started dating, she was telling me about guys who literally, she had just met this guy. They haven't even been on a date yet. And this guy's like, you would be a great mother for my kid. Like, because the guy's already got a kid. And he's like, you would make a great mother. Like, whoa, like, we're jumping the gun here a little bit, aren't we? And so we both kind of like, I remember that's how we used to have lunches talking about like the clinginess of some people. But anyway, kind of going into that, like, you'll see people come into jiu-jitsu who have listened to others talk about their deeper meanings and the deeper meanings that they've gotten from it. And then they come into it looking for that from the first day. opposed to like, just like, look, man, like you may get something different out of this than me, right? It's different for everybody. But that deeper meaning, that life-changing, profound idea that you gain from this thing, it doesn't happen in the beginning overnight. It comes over time, and it's through difficulty and through challenges. So, like, those struggles as they come, and everybody wants to quit on the struggles, that's where those deeper meanings are coming from.
Mhm.
That's where they come from. When you listen to someone talk about how much it changed their life, it wasn't when it was good, right? Because when it's good, it's easy. It's like when you're having to dig out of a hole, you're stuck in a bad position, or you feel like you're going backwards, and you went to your first competition as whatever belt and you got completely annihilated. And what did you do afterward? Like, that's where the deeper meanings are coming from, because you're forced to dig deep. And so I think sometimes I've had people, like, they're brand new and they're like, yeah, man, this is just therapy for me. I was like, you just did our beginner class. Like, how do you know? Like, you haven't been here that long. Like, and you hear them say words that they've heard from someone else, even like my videos, and I'm like, you will get these deeper meanings to it. Give it time. It'll come to you.
Yeah. No,
So just slow it down a little bit, right?
Well, people get like almost like obsessed with jiu-jitsu.
Well, I'm okay. Well, it's
Like,
okay if they get obsessed in jiu-jitsu, but I'm talking about, like, you're in your first couple days of jiu-jitsu, and you're expecting for, like, it's like someone doing meditation, and they just had their very first 10-minute sit, and they're like waiting. They're like, "Hey, where's the profound ideas?" I'm like, "Well, they don't come that fast." It's one of those things where nothing. It's like going to the gym, and you're ready to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. You just did your first set of bench press, and you're like, "Where is it?" Like, where is it? It's like, it doesn't come that fast, man. Like, it takes a while. This is how this things works. And so, just like the skill of jiu-jitsu comes slow, the
right.
meaning of it, the deeper sort of experiences you have, and that sort of like life-changing element to it, it typically comes on slow. I'm not saying like years slow. I mean, it might be within months, all of a sudden you're starting to change, but I'm saying it takes more than just a couple days. You're not going to feel it immediately, and be more open to what comes to you.
Yeah, I think it's probably more of a gradual kind of onset. Like, it just becomes like, for me, I think it just kind of shifted over time. I didn't necessarily like, oh, well, these are all my friends. It's just kind of
Right.
like, oh, it's just like all of a sudden I'm like, hanging out after class, like we used to hang out like on a Saturday and hanging out and just having this conversations. I was like, oh, that was meaningful. That was fun. That was different. Like, it's kind of, but that doesn't start like initially. Maybe it starts like, well, we hang out for 5 minutes after class one day and just
Yeah.
bullshit, and then like we all go home, and then all of a sudden next time we're like having a little longer, more time, or so people start bringing up different things that maybe aren't specifically jujitsu. Maybe it just starts with like,
Mhm.
hey, let's just talk about this move that we did. Oh, did you see this move? Let's try that. All of a sudden, it's like talk about, well, how was your week and how's your family and how's work going? How's life going? And then you start kind of get into it, and you start to develop relationships more beyond just choking each other, right?
It just like when we met our wives, right? Because it's like, what does it start off as? Oh, you're cute. Let me talk to you. Oh, hey, you're kind of interesting and you're fun to be around. And then before you know it, like, you just want to spend more and more time with this person, and you really like them. And, and what starts off as one date leads to another, leads to another. And then before you know it, like, you guys have a house together,
Yeah.
you live together, you have, home, kids, whatever. All of a sudden,
Yeah.
you look around, and you're like 10, 12, 15 years later, you're like, what started off as he or she's attractive, like, off it goes, right? And so it just changes. And that's, I think, maybe as a side thing, when if you're newer to jiu-jitsu, and like you're like waiting for that profound meaning, like, again, don't go into it with that, just like you wouldn't go into a relationship like with like, hey, you're my soulmate. Like, we just met, you bought me a drink. How do you know I'm your soulmate, right? Like, give it time and let things develop. So when you go into the gym, like, enjoy it for what it is. Enjoy it for like the learning, the fitness, all that stuff. But at the same time, know that deep down there's these challenges that you're going to go through, and it is those challenges a lot of times that strengthens the relationship you have with this thing, just like it does anything else, right? Like, when you
Mm.
and your partner get over something, you guys work through some stuff, typically the relationship's a little stronger because of it. So, all right, guys, so hopefully you enjoyed the podcast. As always, when Eugene and I get going, there's like twists and turns and things like that. And hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you guys if there was something that struck you in the podcast, or maybe you came up with a deeper meaning for your training and for, the things that you do. And I know some of you that listen to the podcast, I found this out, don't even do jiu-jitsu.
Really?
Yeah. Some people are just martial artists. And which is martial arts, like what applies to jiu-jitsu applies to a lot of martial arts. And the way that I talk about it, the way that you talk about it, it applies to a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
But if there is a deeper meaning that you get from jiu-jitsu, from another activity, and you'd like to share, send it to us on a Instagram message or an email, and we'll include it in one of our upcoming podcasts just to kind of bring it up and throw you a shout out. But again, big thanks to you guys for being here. Hopefully you enjoyed the podcast. Big thanks to our sponsors for helping make the podcast happen. Charlotte's Web, amazing CBD products. I use them every day. If you guys want to check them out, you go to charlottesweb.com. The promo code is Chewjitsu30 for 30% off the order. And you can get whatever you want for 30% off. It's a good deal on products that are well crafted, that are third-party tested. And whenever the FDA gets around to actually regulating them, they will be perfectly in spec. They won't have to change anything because they're already like going above and beyond what they actually have to do. Which costs a little bit more money, but on the other side of it, you actually know what you're getting and what you're putting into your body, which I think is kind of important with supplements. So check them out at charlottesweb.com. Promo code is Chewjitsu30. Epic Roll. Again, I'm getting my new rash guards and shorts made through Epic Roll. If you guys want to get a set of those, go to my website at chewjitsu.net to get details. And along with that, if you guys ever are listening to this in the future and it's past that point, you can go to epicrollbjj.com and you can get whatever jiu-jitsu gear you want. And again, save 20% off the order. So you go to epicrollbjj.com, find something you like, rash guard, shorts, t-shirt, whatever. Use the promo code Chewjitsu20 for 20% off the order. Also, guys, if you want to support the podcast directly, we have a ton of perks, ton of exclusive content that we give away to our Patreon members. And you can check that out at patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast to get details. If you guys would like to get my Focus Jiu-Jitsu ebook and video, which will go through 12 different strategies to increase focus in your open rolling so that you get more progress, more skill faster. I think it's something we all want, right? It's, again, going back to our idea that sometimes like it's a simple idea, but not necessarily easy. Having focus and maintaining focus during a training session is not easy, but it's simple. And it's one of the simplest things you can do to really move the needle with your skill progression in jiu-jitsu. And if you guys want to get the book, I'll give you 12 different strategies on how to do it for free. Afterwards, you'll get my daily email, which goes into just anything that I think I want to share with you guys. This podcast was in part originally one of my emails, and you guys seem to enjoy the email about me making fun of the fruitcake guy. So I figured we'd talk about fruitcake and grab ass on the podcast today. But again, if you guys want to check out the daily email that I send out, check it out at chewjitsu.net/join, JOIN. When you subscribe, I'll send you the ebook, and then you'll get the daily email afterwards. Also, guys, if you want to, if you have if you have some muscular tightness, if you have some stiffness, if you have some injuries, if you feel like you just don't move like you should be able to move, right? My buddy Eugene here is currently offering coaching one-on-one with people. And so I shared this early on the intro, and I'll share it again here because I know sometimes people fast forward through stuff. So if you're listening to this one but didn't listen to the other one, then kind of cover it here. I like sharing people. I like sharing my coaches with people because I've had good results. So when I share Eli with people, I've never made a dime off of Eli's private coaching. Like when one of you guys gets Eli and hires him to be your nutrition coach, I don't get a kickback for that. I'm not sour about it either. I don't care, right? I'm happy. I'm happy to support him because I think he does amazing work. Like literally, if you do what the guy tells you to do, like you're going to get the results, guaranteed. I mean, I can't say guaranteed because whatever, but like just do what he tells you to do. You're going to see results. Yep. On the flip side, Eugene is one of these guys where if someone's messed up in the gym, if someone's having trouble moving, they're like, man, I'm super tired. Go talk to Eugene. He'll figure it out. He'll sit there and like fiddle around with your body for a few seconds. He'll like, hey, let me see you walk for a minute. And then instantly he's like, here's what you need to be doing. I went to him, I've been to him. So he's been my physical therapist for, over 10 years now. I remember going to him over so many times where it's like, hey, move your arm this way. Ooh, this is what's wrong. So you need to do this exercise. Like I remember at the beginning of the quarantine in 2020, I had something wrong with my shoulder. I was doing those little banded like movements up on a wall. And I was doing those every day. And again, just like Eli, if he looks at you, if he diagnoses a problem and says, I think this is what's going on, there's never a guarantee for anything. But at least in my results, it's like things start to improve.
Sure.
Whether I'm coming back from an injury, whether I'm just trying to get a little bit more movement somewhere, there may take a couple iterations of like adjusting the movements and stuff like that as we dig deeper into the problem. But nonetheless, it's like I find improvement from it. And so, if any of you guys are having issues where you just don't move like you want to, or maybe you're overcoming some injuries, or you've got a surgery lined up, and you want an approach from a person who knows what we do and is also a doctor of physical therapy that knows what they're doing there, then check them out and get coaching with them. Get the details for it. Where can they get details for your coaching, Eugene?
Yeah, they can check me out on Instagram, send me a message there, or even jiujitsutherapist@gmail.com. Send me an email if you'd like, but multiple ways to get a hold of me. But yeah, and sometimes, the other thing I'll say is sometimes if you feel like you're just not moving as well, like Chewy, you mentioned, or if you don't have necessarily pain or anything like that, but you're just not moving as well as you'd like, I think it's good to be proactive about some of these things, especially with jiu-jitsu. A lot of people I've worked with, they just want to figure out how to start moving better and do things proactively just to keep their bodies healthy. And that's a big thing. Like we talk about Eli, Eli's going to give you the tools to get yourself a little bit stronger and get your diet in check, which is, one of the main things he's helped me incredibly so much with. And he's so good at what he does. And that's the thing. Like, I think hiring a coach for whatever you need, I think we all have coaches. I think it's useful. For me, it's been useful to have, obviously we have jiu-jitsu coaches when I get better. And also Eli's my coach when I want to do a little bit of dieting and get myself a little more lean or a little more jacked. So,
well, and again, me and you have like done this stuff where like I've gotten stuff from you, and for me it was like finding different ways. Here's another one. I'm having fun with this because this is the first time we've talked about Eugene talking about coaching. This is something relatively new to the game for him, and I'm kind of his hype man because like I've literally I've gone to the guy so many different times to fix stuff. I remember back when I first got that Origin gi, and the pants were just so nice that I was just kept shooting. I was shooting all week long, and I've developed a rad case of like patella tendonitis. So I remember when I had it, where I was like, I need to go see Eugene. Me and my wife walked across the street to this Ethiopian place that we used to be, that was really close to our apartment that we were living at the time. And I remember, man, like we're walking back, and all of a sudden my patella right under my knee just feels like it's on fire. And like I'm hobbling. I'm like, oh my God, like whatever. And then it was like intermittent. It was like it wouldn't be all the time, but it was really tough. I'm like, what is going on? So Eugene gives me we do this little thing and we look through some stuff, figure out what's going on. And then he's like, all right, here's what you need to do. Give me these things. Like a few weeks later, it was back to normal. It was back, like it never happened. And so again, I have lots of stories like that where I had a problem, went to Eugene and helped me fix it. And again, I can't say that he can do that for every situation, but every time he's given me something and I followed it religiously and did exactly what he told me to do, I had good results from it or saw improvement. And so I feel confident sharing his coaching with you guys. So if you do end up, taking the plunge with him and, to get accountability for trying to improve your movement, trying to feel a little bit better, whatever it is, and getting a customized program tailored to your body to do it, I feel confident that like it'll be a good investment, and you'll be satisfied with what you get versus like, Chewy led me astray. Chewy screwed me over. Chewy and Eugene, they're a bunch of crooks. I think you'll have a good experience with it because I've had a good experience with it. And many of our students in the gym, he's helped keep a lot of our guys on the mats for longer. And so again, whether it's injury prevention or like he said, maybe you got into jiu-jitsu and you've been out, you haven't been active for a long time, and you just notice your body's really tight and rigid and you'd like to move better. Then that can be a situation where he can customize a program specifically to your body and your needs so that you can move a little bit better. Because a lot of times when people when they come into jiu-jitsu, it's like this new activity, and all of a sudden you're getting feedback on your physical limits that you haven't had otherwise.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah.
And it's like, whoa, what's going on? It's like, well, it's like sometimes when people get out of athletics for a long time, they come back, they feel like the same person they've always been mentally, but then when they get on the mats, or like physically, they're like, what the hell happened? I'm like, bro, you've been sitting in a chair for 20 years. Like, that's what happened. Like, you haven't trained. And so you got to get back into it. And, I think of it as, especially as you get older, I feel like it's more common. When you're young, you just get away with a lot of stuff. As we get older, it's kind of like a car. that all of a sudden the check engine light comes on, the door starts rattling, it's making some weird noise, and you got to like make sure the oil's filled up every few days. We just, some of these, like if you got an old car, and sometimes it just requires some little quirks and some little routine maintenance that you have to maintain that wouldn't be needed for, like, say, a brand new car.
Sure.
And so as we get older, our bodies are like that, that car. Like sometimes you just have little quirks about them that you have to be privy to in order to, keep them on the road and keep moving. And so it's the same thing. He can help you figure out the quirks of your body and what's happening and why this muscle feels this way and whatever else. And then you can address it. So hype speech for Eugene's coaching. Check it out if you want to, and use whoever you want to, but it's money well spent. So anyway, guys, hopefully you're doing well. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll talk to you next time.